Hi, everybody. It's me, Beth Maitland from Drama Queen Bee Quilt Studio. And as promised, I'm here with part two of our project video, the Writer's Block Quilt. And we're going to make a block today. I've picked out some fabrics, and I think it will be fun to just do the project, and you can quilt along with me if you wish. It's not really a quilt along, but you'll get the idea. And I'm sorry about the lighting. Downstairs, I've lit up the little quilting area where I'm going to be cutting the block. But we're having our very first serious winter storm, and it's already March. And it has been blowing like a banshee. It is the arch that I have in my little fairy garden with twinkle lights has come down, and tarps have blown off. And it's been pretty intense around here. It's been pouring rain. And my little holding reservoir out in the horse pasture is filling up quick. So it's been a little wild, which is hence the no makeup and crazy hair day. I've been half the day outside, but what better time than to cuddle up a little bit and to do some quilting? So meet me downstairs in the quilt studio and we will make a block. Oh, there might even be a little bonus toward the end. Maybe we'll end up with 2 blocks. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so I have a solid on the left and I have a Kaffe Fassett jelly roll. And this is called Ocean. It's a beautiful combination of blues, greens, teals, some purples, and some lighter greens. And I'm going to open it up. This is my favorite part, and everyone's favorite part of opening a jelly roll is undoing the ribbon, and usually there's an elastic band, and then unwrapping the amazing colors. Usually this is with the fabric. In Kaffe's situation, they always pink their edges at the factory, and all of the selvages are always pinked off. I'm going to pick out just a few in my colorway of these beautiful fabrics that I know are absolutely going to work with that solid Kona teal blue on the left, my solid that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to separate out some of the fabrics in my colorway. I don't think the polka dot's going to work. So I'm going to pull those out and set the rest aside for now. We may return to that shortly, but in the meantime, we're going to pick out just the right fabric to go with this blue, and we're going to build a block. And we're going to have a bonus block at the end because we've got a few cuts of the fabric left. I think that one's the perfect match. Yeah, that looks just right. Everything else has a little bit of pop color. I'm going to set those aside and we'll fussy cut around those later. But in the meantime, this is our combination. So now this is our width of fabric, around 42 inches by 2.5 inches. And I'm going to take my solid and set it aside for now, but I'm going to cut a strip to match out of the solid in just a moment. So I need 2 pieces that are 2.5 inch wide, which is the width of my jelly roll, by 4.5 inches deep to make my block. So I'm going to cut a couple of those off. I'm going to use my mat and my ruler to kind of measure everything exactingly. I'm going to make sure those are as close to matching perfectly as possible. And I'm going to use, like I said, I'm going to use the lines on my mat to kind of keep me horizontal. And I'm going to use the ruler as well. It doesn't hurt to cross compare to make sure that I am on task. So again, we need now 2 cuts of 4.5 inches wide. And 1, 2, 3, 4.5, measure twice, cut once. And that's 2 pieces because our fabric's folded in half. And here's our 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Measure twice, cut once. And we'll set those aside. And when we come back with our solid, we're going to now subcut. I'm going to just fold this up so that for ease of vision in our filming square. Smoothing this out nicely. I'm going to line this up to my lines on my cutting mat. You can see the selvage and the fold at the bottom of our screen. I'm going to start on the right hand side and I'm going to even that all up. I'm just going to make my cutting edge perfect on the right and just shave off a little bit there to make it true. And then I will line up with the lines on my mat, and you can see I've got the full width of fabrics sorted out. And what I'm going to do is I need a 2.5 inch strip width of fabric. So I'm just going to make myself one, and that's going to then match my jelly roll. 1, 2.5, and slice. It's a really pretty color that matches the paint almost exactly. And while I'm slicing, I'll just make a second one because we had in this jelly roll from Kaffe Fassett Collective, we get 2 of this pattern. And these match so well that at some future time, I might decide that I want to make something else with this strip. But in the meantime, now I'm going to just trim off my selvage edges on my solid. And again, I'm going to sort of line everything up as best I can and use my lines on my cutting mat and on my ruler and shave off those little selvage edges we're not going to need. Toss them. And now, remember, we need 2 4.5-inch subcuts. So there's our first set. Measure twice, cut once. And there's 2 there, as you see. Oh, look at me. Because I had, that's right, because I had double folded my, so that you could see it easily in my frame of my shooting for the video. And now we're set. We're ready to go. So now I'm going to take what's left of my jelly roll strip and sort of what's left of one of my solids, and I'm going to measure them to match because we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew these strip sets together. I'm going to sew one edge of the print to one edge of the solid. And so what I'm doing is just taking off, and by coincidence, this is almost exactly 4.5 inches, this extra little piece, which I can use later in another one of our blocks as we get creative with building other blocks. So I'll set that little extra piece aside and we'll be combining that for a future block. In the meantime, now I have a solid, what's left of my print and a matching size of my solid, and I'm going to put them right sides together and take them over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew them together along one long edge. And you'll see why in a few moments. We're going to make little 4 patches, and we're going to need to press this open, and then we're going to cut 2.5-inch strips to make our 4 patches. And so this is where I'm going to sew. Let's go to the sewing machine and take care of it. Be right back. Okay, in the meantime, I'm also going to take these with me over to the sewing machine because we're going to do our construction on our block, and we'll need the short sides, right sides together, sewn together for our block. Now I have enough for 2 blocks here, so to save time, I'm going to take all of them over and sew them together. It doesn't necessarily mean that I am going to make 2 exact blocks because, as we spoke earlier in the first episode of this process, I'm only going to make 1 block. There will be no 2 blocks alike, so I'm only going to need really 1 block. So, but what we need for sure is 4 patches. So I'm going to trim off this little outer edge and even us up. And then because my jelly roll strip and my solid strip are 2.5 inches wide, I'm going to be cutting 2.5-inch subcuts to make my 4 patches. And I will need 2 4 patches to make this block. So that's 2 4 patches at 2.5 inches wide. So this is a single. I think I don't have this folded in half, so I'm going to need 1, 2, and that's 1 4 patch, but we'll need 2, so I'm going to cut 2 more. That's how we'll be constructing them. They're going to be pretty, aren't they? I love this fabric. Okay, so we'll make 2 more, 1, 2.5, and half 1, 2. Okay, so when we get these cut, I'm going to set the rest of this strip aside, save it for something else because I love this color combination. And I'm going to take these over to the machine, and this is how we're going to be constructing our block. We're going to need those 2 4 patches sewn together, and then our top and bottom sections will match, obviously, once our seam allowance has been taken. And so now our 4 patches are sewn together. And now we'll sew them to each other. And I just want to take a quick moment about nesting our seams so that our points match perfectly. You all know about nesting seams. And as you can see, I've pressed these in opposite directions. I pressed toward the darker side. And there is my finished sewn together bit. Now you're going to be able to see how fabulous this block looks. And interestingly, because the print, we want our print side to be sewn together where there is a print in our 4 patch. And you can see it almost looks like there's a 4 patch in the middle and the print wraps around each corner. And so it fools you. It almost makes a frame around the outside, and it looks like there's only one 4 patch. So we're going to use that to our advantage later on with a second orientation when we get our cheater extra block in just a minute. But anyway, you get the idea. Now I'm just trimming up the edges to make it as square as possible. And look at that block. I love it. And as you saw, we had a couple of extra of the 4 patches, and we don't want 2 blocks alike. But we're going to take advantage of having those extra 4 patches from our cutting, and we're going to get a bonus fabric from the Kaffe Fassett Jelly Roll bundle, and it's a little bit darker, but look what we're going to do. We're going to now take advantage of the visual and put a bonus fabric above and below and highlight that there are 2 4 patches in our second block. So basically what I'm doing is just sort of lining up my, my bonus fabric. It's doubled, it's folded in half, and measuring exactly with my, my little double 4 patch section. Oopsie, I bumped it out a little bit. And there we go. Because we've already used up any seam allowance, so this is going to be an exact measurement. And then we'll put that aside for some other mystery block later on when we get there. And I'm going to take right sides together. And with this then we'll have, with one set of cuttings, we're going to have 2 different blocks entirely. And although we're using the same central element of those double 4 patches, we're adding this bonus fabric, and we'll get a bonus block from our little construction project. So I'm going to take those right sides together and sew them top and bottom to our double 4 patch, and look at that. So obviously we're not going to construct these together. We're not going to put them in our quilt right next to each other. They'll be separated by a bit of distance on the quilt and many other blocks. But as you can see, they look so different from each other, but it was almost exactly the same construction. It was just swapping out some fabrics in the upper and lower strip. So that's how we're going to keep making these block after block after block. We're going to just continue to combine beautiful fabrics, and we're going to see what we can do about coming up with different designs for each individual block so that no 2 will be the same. When I have a few minutes, we're going to make another block or 2 blocks at a time. And thank you very much for joining me. It's Beth Maitland at Drama Queen Bee Quilt Studio. All my best wishes. It's Beth Maitland.